live. Alright, let's see if the YouTube gods are
Smile upon us.
smile upon us. And I hope with this we fix the audio problem that I keep having. All right, well, we should be live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bonzer of Radio Retrofuture, and today I have a new guest with me, Todd Downing. How are you, sir?
I am doing well, and you?
Yes, very keeping very busy. Working on a lot of projects. It's funny because we kind of like when I saw your stuff, we kind of have like a very similar mentality toward mixed media.
Yes.
I'd love to pick your brain about that today. Let's see.
Sure.
What do I have special announcements today? Well, of course, I want you to follow our upcoming Kickstarter and our page on Ream's Stories, especially that one where you'll get access to our free stories and previews, including of Enwin, which is nearly done, and the drawings of that new book are becoming so adorable. However, I actually have a nice thing happened to me last week. I started the Kickstarter for the comic, and
Mhm.
I got it was up for a couple of days at that point when I got this message, and it was some type of Spanish convention called Weird Market or Weird Con,
Hmm.
and they asked me to put my comic up for consideration for a catalog they publish every year for
Oh, wow.
um, what do you yeah for European based creative projects. And yesterday morning, I got a message that we have been approved for the catalog. So,
Nice.
Journey to Elysium is going to be in this catalog, and what that will mean, I don't know. But still, it's quite amazing.
Yes.
Thanks for
More
making sure.
eyeballs on the
Oh,
product.
yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, the idea is that it's like that it's meant for producers and people like that who are looking for, I don't know, new talent or something. And the cool guy, thanks for making sure the audio is good. I really appreciate that as a listener. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why I had so many audio problems as of late. So thank you all for letting us know. It's now audible. And with that, let's go to our guest, Todd. What is it that you're working on, and how did it come to be that you end up on this show?
Well, I think we met through some Facebook communities dedicated to retrofuturism and things like that. I think we have some friends in common, and just it's one of those things where you've been doing your thing, I've been doing my thing, and we've never crossed over until now.
Hmm. Yeah, it would be nice. Oh, actually, I'm trying to arrange that on Discord. That there's like a place where people who write retrofuturism and pulp can meet up and
Yeah.
collaborate. But there's also the other thing that well, a lot of the creators are very Einzelgangers. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, that, that,
Yeah.
that
Going it alone.
yeah, that,
Yeah, yeah. Then the community is very siloed, I think. A lot of different silos of creators and fandoms, and there really should be more effort toward opening those up
mhm.
and having some interplay, I
uh,
think.
yeah. Well, we are here to talk about your stuff, of course, but like I had it was in the context of AI,
Yeah,
and that there's a lot of people are talking about image generating AI, but when it comes to steampunk, AI does one thing, Gotham Brown. That's it.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just making more of the same, and of course there's the problem that you talked about fandoms. But the costume
Hmm.
fandom of, for example, steampunk is not the same as the comic book fandom of steampunk, or in that case, even
Right.
the book fandom of steampunk. And that's one of the problems that people talk about steampunk and all these other punks as being one thing, But no, it's
Mm-mm.
actually multiple
It's very
things.
different.
Yeah,
Yep.
and they have very
A
different
lot of
fandoms,
different
and
various subcultures within each genre.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to, and we kind of started this discussion on there, and where she mentioned, oh, but yeah, steampunks haven't been making new things for years. People don't post new stuff, well, except for me, apparently. And but I know why, because I came up with this horrible analogy. What's the difference between a leper and a creative within the steampunk costume community?
Oh no. What?
Lepers get charity.
Oh God.
Well, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one of the problems. Where and I think the problem in there is that we are seen as vendors. We are seen as people who just
Mhm.
sell people stuff. They don't.
Makers. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't see the making, the creative process that goes behind it, and I think that's a massive issue. Because when
Yeah.
you go outside the costume community, I mean, if you look at Kickstarter, my God, they're like Kickstarter steampunk projects who bring in like $1 million on there,
Right.
particular
Right.
board games. But the costume community kind of like ignores all that.
Yeah.
They and well, that's kind of like the issue, and something that um, there needs to be a community of people that love steampunk books, steampunk comics,
Yeah.
and a space where all that can. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to do with the Association of Ishtar. It's one shared
Sure.
universe, but it has like multiple offers. And there's already one man who has finished a story for it, and I shared it during the last Kickstarter. And it's an Association of Ishtar story, but he showcases his skill, and people are like, "Oh yeah, well, I love that story. Where can I get the rest of this stuff?" So it
Mm.
works. Um, and yeah, we'll see where it goes. But
Yeah. It's a very similar concept, at least in the foundation, to my Airship Daedalus Aegis verse. Um, which is it's not steampunk. It's what I refer to as deco punk, which is kind of like diesel punk, only more focused on a positive, optimistic retro futurist setting. It's more about the design. It's more about a forward-looking technology, green technology, but using what was available in the 20s and 30s, the interbellum period between the world wars.
yeah, but yeah, let's talk a little bit with your universe. What's
Mhm.
it called, and where did the ideas come from?
Well, it originally started out actually as a setting I was writing some short stories in college back in the late 80s, which definitely dates me, but that's when it started. And I always liked the Greek legend of Daedalus and Icarus and their escape from the tower using technology, using innovation, um, using craft uh, and that kind of thing, and um, that always kind of drove the vision of, hey, I liked airships, I like the 20s as a setting, aesthetically, I like Art Deco. Um, that kind of stuff, and it was a way to also create some dynamic, diverse characters and populate this setting. Throw everything from all sorts of pulp subgenres into it, from science fiction to air adventure to cosmic horror. I call it kitchen sink pulp. So it's
Mm-hmm.
everything and the kitchen sink. Um, and so from the short stories, I was always kind of tinkering with role playing mechanics for it. Some of my college friends were early playtesters on that. And then in the mid 90s, I ran a hobby store in Seattle called The Gamut, with some friends, partners, and we were all gaming partners as well, gaming group, and so we started playtesting a house system in our game store because we also offered play space for our customers, and that core system eventually became our premium fantasy game, Aeroflight, which is an epic fantasy, kind of high fantasy setting. And then we began publishing in earnest in 1999. We formed a Deep Seven Press. It was originally just called Deep Seven back then, and we published Aeroflight. We published a couple of different games. We also published. Um, we went online with like 4 or 5 downloadable beer and pretzels role playing games. Very simple mechanics, all based on movie genres, called the 1PGs because the rules were so simple they fit on one page. And there was more than one page in the game, but each page, contained rules for this or rules for that, or the basic play. Um, and then in 2001, we landed the license to produce the official Red Dwarf role playing game,
Well,
which, yeah, and you're frozen again, just to
yeah.
let you
I
know.
mean,
Um, so there you are. Red Dwarf really put us on the map. It was always intended to be a 3 volume line, a 3 volume set. We didn't want to do endless splat books, which was kind of the custom at the time. So we put out the basic rule book, and we put out what we called the AI screen, which had Holly's face on the front, and so it was a trifold screen, and whoever was the AI or the game master would have Holly's image in front, which was kind of a neat conceit, and that had a little supplementary rules booklet with it, and then we put out a series source book, which contained at that time every single episode through season 8. Um, Broken down into playable stats and characters and equipment and that kind of stuff. And yeah, and then in 2005, my wife Samantha, who is my business partner in Deep Seven, passed away from cancer.
oh,
And so I took the business because I was the sole remaining partner at the time, or the sole operator. I took it third party, like all third party fulfillment. I automated it as much as possible because I was also raising 2 kids on my own. Um, and so I stepped away from the role playing world for a while. I was focusing on, I directed a few films, wrote a lot of screenplays, that kind of thing. I was very active in the Seattle theater community. And then I met a wonderful woman in 2008. We were married in 2009. And in 2010, I put out a second edition of Aeroflight, um, which was pretty popular. And we started producing setting books for that. And all the time I was working on these little um, these passion projects within the greater scope of role playing games, tabletop role playing games. One was called Grimworld, which was kind of a dark fantasy setting, and the other one was Airship Daedalus, which I always wanted to go back to. And so in about 2011, I met up with an old artist friend, Brian Beardsley, and he and I hatched this scheme to get Airship Daedalus actually out there in some form. And that form was an old style comic strip, not a book, but it was a comic strip that we published weekly as a web comic. But it was done landscape format, like the old um, newsprint comics
no. Like,
from
is that
that
like
era.
three images or something like that?
No, it was two levels. It was about 6 panels. Um, yeah, and that ran for a couple of years. We got out 3 of the 4 chapters that were written, and in fact, Brian came back later. He had work commitments that he had to do, so he was unable to finish the 4th chapter at the time. But he actually came back and did the inks for it, so it exists, but it has not been colored or lettered. Um, but in any case, the first 3 chapters are out in graphic novel format. And then in 2016, I had a writer friend, John Sullivan, who also writes under the name Mark Para. Um, he writes really amazing spy fiction. But I contacted him about maybe doing a novel because I was thinking about stepping back into the long form fiction world after 30 years or something. And he wrote the first Airship Daedalus novel, Assassins of the Lost Kingdom. And I was so inspired by that that I decided to get back into long form fiction um, big time. And so I wrote a prequel to that called The Shield Against the Darkness. It was kind of like a fictionalization of the comic scripts with a lot more detail in there and a lot more, kind of supplementary
Mm-hmm.
action and things like that. And that led to a 6 book series, Airship Daedalus series. And the last book just came out last year, and we're just about to release the final audiobook in that series as well. And
Okay.
then it's
So.
got two fiction anthologies with a bunch of different authors called Aegis Tales, which is the greater um, Airship Daedalus universe, but with different characters and situations that you're not going to see in the main series. And then we also have a full role playing game line. It has, I think, 8 volumes in it.
Oh
So,
wow. Yeah.
radio shows, we have 12 radio episodes that are out. Yeah, I think, and I'm kind of pushing it forward now, pushing the timeline forward into the 1930s because the major action takes place in the 20s. And I'm pushing it into the 1930s with a space race, actually, and exploring
Okay.
Mars, Venus, and the moon. So yeah, that's a lot.
Oh well. I
That's
mean,
that's where we.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I can go on my own stuff like that as well. So,
Of
because there
course.
there are a lot of similarities between the projects, except that you're
Yes.
far ahead of me.
Oh,
I
I don't
still,
know about that.
yeah, I still need to finish the second audiobook of the Wrench in the Machine. So it's like,
Right.
but yeah. Then again, I've got 2 new books in almost ready. And when it's nearly done, Johan, my illustrator, is finishing up the illustrations, which are very adorable. And
Yeah, I've seen some of that art that you've been posting.
yeah, yeah, he's currently now also working on a mascot that I want to use for marketing, and it has an older
Cool.
version of one of the main characters, so that's nice to see. So yeah, it's coming together slowly, but it's coming together somehow. Let's see. Let's see. Hi, Riches. Welcome. Nice audio. Thank you very much. Um, uh, D. Noling. I only found Radio Future the other day. I love Steam Disapunk. It says a lot how underserved these genres are. Never heard of either of your guys' works. Excited to explore both. Well, thank you very much. I just posted a link to my Kickstarter. And yeah, we also have a Discord, and I need to reorganize that so it becomes more user friendly also for other offers, because that's what I would like to see there. That we've got Kelly Austin on there as well. She writes kind of like diesel steampunk esque, kind of like shadow inspired stuff. Um, Yeah, and yeah, the and I yeah, like I said, I also hope to see more anthologies. And maybe because I have so many ideas that I want to work out, I might actually have to like and see if I can like commission an offer or two to to write some of the book that I'd like to see,
Yes.
some of the objects being explored. Um, so yeah, like I said before at the start of the stream, I think there's a lot of demand for dieselpunk and steampunk, and but yeah, like yeah, it needs to find it needs to develop its fan base. That's
Yeah.
one of the things. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Always looking for more. Well, I mean, you can in my case you can start on Ream Stories. I'll put that link in there. There are some of my stories for free on there, and I hope to develop. I think that would be a good base to develop a writing community of pulp authors. Let me see.
Hmm. There are a
Um,
lot of us out there.
yeah, exactly. And the nice thing about Ream is there is a financial incentive for everyone to, work on there. And also book funnel for offer swaps and that type of stuff. I really have to work on that, so we can swap newsletters
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And that's something that we all need to work on. It's something we none of us like to do, but
Yeah.
when offers are among each other, it's all we talk about. You know, I'm very
Yep.
sure that like people have this very romanticized image that when offers come around, they're talking about writing, but no, they rarely do, rarely do,
No.
rarely do. It's true.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and we kind of got sidetracked, but yeah, no, there's a lot of us out there. There just needs to be um, a specific fandom for readers and writers. That's
Yes.
the biggest thing, and because when it comes to steampunk, it's all focused on the costuming community,
Yeah.
and
It's true.
yeah, and because that those are the social people, and authors and creators don't tend to be very social.
Yeah.
Um, that's also one thing that they teach during the course. Like on conventions, you've got three types of people. You've got the publishers who sell like loads of books. You've got the artists who are like bent over their table, drawing, and then you've got the authors, and they only have like their own books, which
Yeah.
don't tend to be that many. So it's a tough space to compete in.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah. Anyway, I saw a question for our guest. Are you the former OC of Titans?
OC of Titans?
Yeah,
I don't
I'm just saying the question. I don't get the question either.
I don't really understand that either.
No, no, I'm not sure either. Um. Anyway, what were we talking about again?
Oh, offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. I get it. It's an NFL question. I am not the same Todd Downing. No. In fact, I have that on my bio. He also used to be
Oh.
the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, and that's when I first became aware because people were messaging me on then Twitter, um, and sending me hate mail because he was pretty reviled.
Oh God.
And I was like, no, not me. No, it's not. No, I am not that guy. There's also a filmmaker in New York by the same name, and I'm not him either.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed there are some authors who, as pen names, have authors very similar to famous people. Um,
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, there's actually a mystery author who has also written some books on Native American anthropology. And again, a lot of times, like on Goodreads or whatever, his stuff gets lumped in with mine, and we're not the same.
Oh man, I shouldn't have chosen such a unique nickname.
I
Well, that shows me. Or is it not too late to change? Oh, thank you for not being that Todd.
You're
Um,
welcome.
no, I suppose he's not that.
Save, please.
I have nothing with sports, let alone American sports. So,
Right, right.
all right. What else? Maybe you could like reveal a little bit about the plot. With what book should people start reading your series?
Well, I mean, the comic is very accessible, and right now it's just up for free on the airshipdatalist.com website. Just make sure you spell it right. It's Daedalus, airshipdatalist.com. And I also have links to it from my author site, todddowning.com. And
All right,
again, make sure you get the
post
3Ds
them.
and the DOD.
Yeah, post them to me or in the Discord, and I'll put them in the video description.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So from there, I mean, it's kind of logical if you want to check out the radio dramas. Those are pretty digestible. They're each about half an hour long. And there are some for Airship Daedalus, and there are some for Aegis Tales, which is again the larger universe. And then if they want to start with the long form with the novels, you can either go with the Aegis Tales anthologies, and there are two of them. Or if you want to start with the main series, it's A Shield Against the Darkness, which is chronologically the first book. Although it was the second book actually published, it takes place first. Um, and again, all of that I have direct links on my website. So there are six books in that series. Um, and yeah, and if you're a gamer, check out the tabletop role playing game. Again, it's a full line. We just I think within the last year, I think it was a year and a half ago, we put out a really pretty supplement for it called Under the Surface, which kind of expands the the pulp setting of Airship Daedalus in a lot of the hidden spaces, worlds at the Earth's core, or mystical ruins in different places. And it's all based on real world legend, and it's our take on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, as you know, we want to create a role playing game inspired by the Association of Ishtar as well. So, what
Yeah.
would be the biggest pitfalls when you try to translate books to games?
Well, I mean, it's two different worlds, isn't it? You have
Yeah.
a narrative form and you have an interactive form. And the interactive form, you have to learn to just kind of let go.
Mm-hmm.
Because once it is in the hands of the players and game masters, it is no longer completely yours. It is
Mm-hmm.
narrative is where you maintain the most control over your stories. Once it's in the player's hands, it's theirs. I don't mean it legally belongs to them. They can't, infringe on your copyrights, but it becomes intellectually their sandbox to play in. So you have to write and design with more of an open-endedness in mind, and let them take it where they want to take it. Give them a bunch of possibilities. Give them a toolbox. Give them toys to play in the sandbox with. And hopefully, if you have built the sandbox right, you're not going to get cats coming in and pooping in it or whatever you want to, whatever analogy you want to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a challenge. I mean, I'm already suffering when I get like the story proposals back from the authors that want to submit their stories. So, um, but yeah, it's finding that balance from okay, this what I want to create here, and uh, yeah,
Exactly. And
tough.
bringing in their insight into again into your sandbox. with the Aegis Tales anthologies, they're handpicked. Um, they're 10 stories per anthology, 8 different authors, some of them writing more than one, obviously. And they're all short stories with their characters and their take on uh, the setting that I've developed over, well, since the 80s. So um, it's been very interesting, and it's been very enlightening, and it's been very actually gratifying because they get it. I really feel like they get it. They're very collaborative, and they're just really good authors.
Yeah, and there is a new game currently on Kickstarter. I was wondering if you heard of it. Ekreen, from the top of my head. Let's see. Um, for those just joining us, I had a conversation on Facebook about people saying that there is no more steampunk being made, and well, I mean, if you look at the costume community, well,
Mm.
yeah, obviously, but right, yes, it's called Ikrim. Have you heard of it?
No, I have not. And
So it's
and and full disclosure, I'm not really too much tied into the steampunk thing. I'm more pulp adventure,
yeah, gotcha.
1920s and 30s, that kind of thing. That's kind of my wheelhouse, but I do appreciate the steampunk aesthetic.
Hmm.
I'm just not too aware of the communities, day by day,
Yeah, no.
what's
Well,
going
I
on.
discovered this today by coincidence, and when I discovered it today, I think it was at 171 backers. Now it's at 185.
Mm,
So they're now at 70,000 euros.
mm,
And the project is
wow.
funded. Yeah. So when people say, "Oh, there's no steampunk more. There's no interest outside of the steampunk, the costume community," I should say, well, here it is, and
No, clearly there
apparently,
is.
yeah. Oh
Clearly
man,
there is.
definitely. I mean, steampunk games have been the game of the years. Like Frostpunk is a steampunk game that was game of the year, and now they have their own board game as well. And
Yeah.
Frostpunk 2 is coming out this year, I think. So I hope so, because I also love those games. It's one of the rare city builders that I really look forward to.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I might have the guys from this role playing game on the show soon as well. So
Excellent.
yeah, and apparently, as I understand it, this is a translation of a French role playing game.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
Well, I mean, arguably, that was the origin of Victorian science fiction with Jules Verne,
mhm.
which is a huge, that's like the spinal column of steampunk.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that a lot of the steampunk aesthetic is inspired by artists like Mobius,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's like when you ask an American artist like about Mobius, they have no fucking clue who that is. And
Oh,
I,
absolutely, I do. Man, I grew up with Heavy Metal magazine.
yeah, yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, when I talk to American artists, I've got some American artists and South American artists like, can I make some art for you? Because then for once they don't have to draw superheroes.
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I grew up with French comics. My artist Johan, he lives in Indonesia. He grew up with French comics and Mobius, and it's you've got so much choice among
Hmm.
French comics, and yeah, with Americans it's like all superhero stuff, or the really kitschy, cartoonishly violent stuff.
Yeah.
The highly conceptual ones. Let's put it that way.
Sure, sure. There's a lot of good, I will say there's a lot of good indie comics being made in the States right now, as well as we kind of non-traditional takes on various genres. And we devour manga
Yeah.
big time in this country.
Well, yeah, because they've got a
We get a huge
diversity of
appetite for
subjects.
manga. Yeah.
Let's see. Might be a big. I'll start with the question by Rich's question for the guest. Is it safe to assume your stores have femme fatales, if not several?
Well, yes, that's kind of a pulp trope. I try to do something different. I don't color within the lines, if you will. I try to take familiar tropes and kind of spin them a little bit. So yes, I have in the main Airship Daedalus series, there is a main character couple, um, Jack and Doc. Um, Jack McGraw, who is a fighter pilot in the World War One, and Dr. Starr, Dorothy Starr, who was a field medic at the Western Front. And the two of them had a quick um, fling in Paris on leave, and but she broke his heart, went back to her steady, and they kind of drifted apart after the war, and then came back together again because Doc drafted Jack into service with this new organization, Aegis, who was trying to keep the world safe from this evil occultist, Aleister Crowley, and his Astra Argentum, the Silver Star Society. And they seem bent on summoning uh, otherworldly beings and eldritch terrors, hoping to command them for their own ends, but it never works quite that well. And so there is aside, Crowley's kind of the main big bad in the background, but there is his right hand, Maria Bluetooth, is kind of the she wolf of the Astrum Argentum, and she has a personal vendetta against Jack McGraw, whose call sign during the war was Captain Stratosphere for his tactic of flying, diving from a high altitude, not nearly the stratosphere, that was hyperbole, but um, one of his tactics was to dive out of, with the sun at his back, dive out of a high altitude. Um, so yeah, he killed her fiance in the war, and she is absolutely dead set on destroying him, his family, his crew, anybody that he has touched in his life um, must be destroyed. So that's kind of the emotional thread throughout, and it's also Jack and Doc kind of learning to find each other again, and kind of nurturing that relationship. And then you've got this greater crew that starts out, they were all, war buddies together, and they're trying to find their place within this new organization using new experimental technology, including this light recon airship, the Daedalus. And so it just kind of goes from there. A lot of adventures, lots of action, a little bit of romance, some, like I said, some cosmic horror, some air adventure, air pirates, sky pirates, zombies, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit of everything, and it's a whole lot of fun to write and a whole lot of fun to read.
All right. So, with that, let's go to Dean Knowing's question. Might be a big question, but when playing tabletop in these kinds of worlds, I'm more used to fantasy settings. When making stories for these settings, does it take a different mindset approach? Well, let's start with you, I guess.
Um, I would say, I mean, I grew up. Of course, I started with Dungeons and Dragons, like 99% of role players of my era, but very quickly moved into different genres. We were playing Gamma World and Boot Hill and Top Secret and Traveler, and then when Vampire came in, that was like a new era in the industry. And so we've been playing a lot of various genres. It doesn't take a huge shift to imagine. I mean, you just think of your favorite movies in that genre. If you like The Rocketeer, if you like Indiana Jones, if you like, some of that the other stuff, that's really all it takes, and you just kind of work the story magic from that angle. The thing that we offer in actually all of our games, but especially in Airship Daedalus, is a scenario generator, which I don't know if you're familiar with Mad Libs uh, in the Netherlands, but it was a party game that was kind of big in the 60s and 70s in the US. And it's just basically these stories where you fill in a blank based on, a noun or a verb or an adjective. And that's basically what these scenario generators are. It gives you, a place and a character and kind of a plot hook, and it gives you a framework to get started, writing a scenario for that setting in that genre.
Hmm. Yeah, when it comes to what we want to see if we can do, and I'm not sure if we're talking purely about stories for role playing games here because we were still in the process, but kind of like what we want to do more with the association is more objective based, a bit more board game based as well because I
Mm,
prefer board games over role playing games. So.
mhm.
And many board games kinda are already complex enough to be role playing games. Um, in that regard. But yeah, because of the game developer's experience, Sean's experience with games, he also wants to see if he can like work in a kind of like time limiting system. So people actually have to work, actually have to have some kind of time management. Which also comes into play with the setting of the Association of Ishtar overall, that despite it being a multiverse, people can only remain on a different world for a certain period of time before their bodies are being destroyed by this effect. And it was
Right.
originally a limiter to prevent like people making like these ridiculous original characters that could do everything because they've been on all these worlds, or worlds affecting each other, so writers could have their own worlds to work with without having to worry about interference from other from other writers or anything like that. But funnily enough, that mechanic became like a centerpiece of the world building, where you've got all these factions trying to circumvent those effects in various ways. So um, Association of Ishtar is very conceptual in that regard.
Mm,
However, it also allows you to experiment with all these ideas and what ifs and oh, but what if this is a solution? What if that is a solution? That also makes it very hard to explain. That's why I'm writing a manual. Like, what are the
right.
rules? What is the idea? And also that, and I talk about this a lot in videos. My last one, a matter of fact, that writing high concept has become something of a lost art. Either people write high concept because they don't know better, but and I blame BookTube and social media for this, where everyone is like taught about the hero's journey, and they have
Yeah.
like entire dissertations on the hero's journey, but then high concept is like, well, high concept is like when you have an episode or a story that's centered around a what if question.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm now working on explaining like high concept, and somebody brought up a good thing that there's a difference between situational high concept and conceptual high concept. So I'm kind of like working around that. There's a lot of
Okay.
overlap there, but Robot Chicken is very good. Have you watched Robot Chicken?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's say you've got the situations where you've got the emperor standing in line for the elevator. Um, that would be an example of a situational high concept. But then
Right.
you've got. Do you know the skit about the crashing clown car?
The crashing clown car?
Yeah. So you've got this.
Uh, probably.
Well, it's basically this skit where there's like this tiny clown car losing control, crashing into, I don't know, another car or a fire hydrant, and like all these clowns pop out, like this
Yeah. Yeah.
entire legion of clowns, and all like going to their doom in slow motion, like
Yeah.
going to their demise and doing all these clownish things, and you know, and then there's like this little girl seeing it all happen, and like the mother by the end that all these clowns are laying dead on the street. Oh my God, your daddy! And it's like,
Jeez.
I don't know why that is hilarious, but that's an example of like a highly conceptual incident,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
I'm trying to like untangle that a little bit, but there you've got like the horror films is more like a combination between situational and high concept. So I'm trying to like analyze that and clarify it. But yeah, for those who are interested in such types of subjects, you can check out my blog. Sometimes I turn my blogs into videos. Sometimes I do not, but you know, these are all on my channel. A question for the guest by Riches. Is it? Oh wait, no, never mind. I already read that one. Um, but please keep the questions coming, chat. So yeah, is there something else you want to touch upon?
Uh, what, so if you were to name your favorite steampunk or steampunk inspired or a piece of media that inspired steampunk. So say it's a, maybe a classic Jules Verne tale or what is your favorite steampunk media currently?
Medium.
Aside from
Well,
your own.
for my own stories, I usually use history for inspiration, and then I combine that with some pop culture tropes. At the
Hmm.
moment, I'm using a lot of Western. Matter of fact, I
Hmm.
recently submitted a kind of Western inspired tale to Iron Age magazine, Anvil. Um, so Western is a big one. Cyberpunk. I mean, Ghost in the Shell has been a massive inspiration for me. Um, let's see, D. Nowling. I have to run, but this has been fascinating. I'll be looking into Todd's work. I'll catch the rest of the recording later. You do that. Enjoy the rest of your
Thank
day.
you.
Um, yeah, what else do we have? So yeah, Cyberpunk has been a massive one. I'm really looking into noir. Metropolis has been a massive inspiration for me. Fritz Lang in general, by the way.
Yes,
Um,
the man.
I'm trying to think of what has been a massive inspiration for. I mean, the Casket Girls, which I'm currently finishing. Let's see. What did I want to say? Yeah, the Casket Girls is one that I'm finishing right now. But yeah, that's been mostly inspired by the history of Devil's Island and New Guinea.
Hmm.
And I threw robots in there. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's a weird one. I'm looking for proofreaders for that book right now. Then there is Enwin, which I'm finishing up. But yeah, that's mostly slice of life. So yeah, you cannot like escape kind of like the anime influence of that
Right.
type of deal.
Yeah.
Wrench in the Machine. Well, I mean the title already betrays its inspiration in Ghost in the Shell, doesn't it? But there are a lot of references to science fiction in there.
Hmm.
And I guess Bound for the Sticks would be that's my second book in the series. Well, it's mostly inspired by things like Alan Quatermain and Indiana Jones.
Yes.
You know, where people explore alien, in this case, alien ruins. Well, they
Sure.
live there as well, which again is like one of those old science fiction tropes.
Yeah.
Old science fiction, man, is so much more interesting now. All science fiction is turning into epic fantasy in space.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Riches, question for Bonsard. Where did the veteran detective archetype come from? Uh, wow. Veteran. I mean, well, actually, I think kind of like the detective slash noir era of the 1950s. But I mean, that's really because a lot of those guys were literally veterans who became police officers. So, if you
True.
have you seen The Naked City by any chance?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and there you've
Yes.
got like this very young guy talk like, "Oh, isn't that swell, Mister?" You know, that kind of milksopish character, and then it's like, "But yes, here's Johnny. He is a brand new detective who just came back from Europe killing Nazis." And it's like,
Yeah. Exactly. But do you know the film The Big Heat
the
with
Big
Glenn
Heat. I
Ford?
do not.
The, that was directed by Fritz Lang, and it's arguably my favorite film noir. 1952, I think.
Okay.
And Glenn Ford, again, he's a homicide detective or a vice detective, I think. And no, I guess he is homicide because the first thing you see him, he's on scene at a cop suicide,
Hmm.
alleged suicide, and all of his buddies are friends from the war. So it's that's definitely a trope, and
Hmm.
has a long and distinguished pedigree.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at, I mean, in a lot of Lovecraft stories, many of these investigators are are veterans.
Yeah. Hmm.
Let's see, The Big Heat, 1953, Fritz Lang.
Yeah.
Let's see, it's not on YouTube, but the trailers are. So,
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic film noir, and a young Lee Marvin is in it, playing a bad guy. He's
hmm.
great.
But yeah, to summarize the answer, Riches, yeah, I mean, after the war, a lot of these police officers were literally just veterans. So there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, and trauma was a big problem. I mean, still is a big, massive issue among veterans.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's where you go. So yeah, anything else we could talk about? Um, well, we want to do more. We want to talk about the progress of our own role playing game in the future on more streams. So maybe you'd like to join us on there and share your experiences with us.
Oh, very possibly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to see if we can use that as a kind of like jumping off point for people to submit their ideas. We have this two-step process currently for the series where at first people submit like a pitch of 150 words, kind of like a blurb, an in-universe blurb, like I don't know, a newspaper headline or just a short story fragment where they describe the idea of the concept, and so we know it fits the setting. That's kind of the idea now. And we can also do that during writing sprints, just pitch 150 word ideas, which more work than people think. Um,
Hmm.
but still, anyway. So that's kind of like how we're trying to go about it. And if the idea is good enough, it's a canon automatically, and other people or yourself can finish it. That's kind of like the idea. Have you used platforms like World Anvil for your role playing systems?
World Anvil, virtual tabletops or that kind of thing.
World Anvil is especially a platform to
Oh,
for world building. So it's
right, right, right. Um, I haven't. Very early on, before World at Anvil was a thing, I used the Patricia Reed world building questionnaire. I
okay.
found that a very useful tool. And what it is a document, and you just answer the questions about the world that you're trying to build. And it forces you to think about really interesting pieces of you would think would be minutia, but it's actually pretty pivotal to
Hmm.
societies or various histories or that kind of thing. So it's a really good tool for that. I have looked at World Anvil, but I have not used it to my memory anyway.
We have a world anvil. As a matter of fact, I even invested in like the basic level. But I mean, I just don't have the time, and yeah, my community is just not active enough to justify it. So I need to make a decision if I'm gonna keep paying for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if people use it, it's a useful, very useful tool.
Sure.
Um, but when it comes to world building, you've got like all these writers who, let's call them aspiring writers who like have like entire documents dedicated to a single character and world.
Mhm.
Then and they've done like these entire world histories, and then you ask them, okay, but if I get up in the morning, what will my room look like?
Mhm.
Or well, will my character do groceries? Or if I enter the street, what will I see? That's
Well, and it also depends on the individual author's process too, and it can change between settings. So, for instance, Aeroflight, uh, the fantasy setting, I've been developing that since the early '80s, and I started small and grew the world small to large. With something like Airship Daedalus, it's always been more of a top-down, create the setting, or again, I go back to the sandbox analogy, and then work down.
hmm
So, it's all dependent on the author and the project itself.
yes. All right. Well, with that, I suggest we leave it for today at that. I don't see any new questions at the moment in chat either. So, folks, if you have not already, please like, comment, and the subscribe, and all those algorithmic things to help this channel grow. My growth recently staggered to a crawl for some reason. I don't know what happened there. So yeah, please share
You
my
offended the algorithm.
yeah, it's ebb and flow in the algorithm. Like at one point, I was like at nearly 17 new subscribers a month, and now all of a sudden it's like down to 15.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, if you don't already, please share my videos with your friends. Help this channel grow, and that way also make sure all the people who come on our channel have more exposure. Of course, we are now doing our own Kickstarter, Journey to Elysium. Please follow that. If we reach 150 people, I will commission new miniatures, which you can then print yourself or buy the resin ones through the Kickstarter. And of course, join us on Ream Stories, where you get free access to our short stories and previews of our books as well, including Enwin for the people who are members. And yeah, I like to end the streams with some words of wisdom of our new guest. So, do you have some wisdom to share with us, Todd?
Wisdom. I have a lot of opinions. I don't know. I don't know how wise they are. Just be good. Be a good person. Be good to one another.
Mm-hmm. All
Life is
right.
too short to be an asshole.
Well, that's definitely true. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and with that, we're gonna bid you adieu. And as always, make things